Hello everyone, welcome to my update US gossip channel. Tracy had built over the years. The woman she had known as Ronnie, the one who had been a presence in her life for what seemed like an eternity, was gone. The reality was unthinkable. The real Ronnie had been killed, and the person standing before her now, smiling, speaking, and behaving like Ronnie, was nothing more than an impostor. Tracy's anger was a slow burn at first, simmering beneath the surface, but it soon became an inferno, consuming rational thought and leaving only the raw, unfiltered emotions of betrayal, grief, and fury. The impostor's presence felt like a violation, a trespass into sacred memories that could never be reclaimed. Tracy wanted to scream, to demand answers, but words failed her in the face of such an outrageous deception. For weeks, Tracy had been observing Ronnie, searching for cracks, inconsistencies, or subtle giveaways that something was off. At first, it was small things, the way Ronnie used a phrase slightly differently, a laugh that didn't quite match, a memory recalled incorrectly. At first, she had dismissed them as trivial, the quirks of a long friendship evolving over time. But as the anomalies multiplied, a gnawing suspicion began to grow, sharpening into a cold, undeniable certainty. Tracy realized she was living alongside a lie, a carefully constructed mimic of someone she had loved and trusted. Every shared secret, every laugh, every moment of vulnerability now felt tainted, like a precious memory covered in a shadow of deceit. Anger became Tracy's armor. She could no longer allow herself to feel the initial shock and grief without resistance, they would consume her otherwise. She confronted the impostor, voice trembling yet edged with steel. "Who are you?" she demanded, her eyes searching for a flicker of recognition, a shred of the person she thought she knew. But the impostor remained unnervingly calm, smooth, and rehearsed, like an actor performing a role that had been perfected to manipulate those around her. Tracy's frustration mounted. This was no ordinary deception, this was a full-scale, invasive fraud. The audacity of someone stepping into the shoes of her lost friend, mocking her pain by pretending to be someone who no longer existed, made her blood boil. The layers of betrayal ran deeper than Tracy could have imagined. It wasn't just the impostor who had infiltrated her life, there were others complicit, silent facilitators who had either orchestrated the deception or allowed it to continue unchecked. Tracy began to see patterns that previously went unnoticed, subtle shifts in interactions, whispered conversations cut short when she entered the room, strange coincidences that now seemed deliberate. Her mind raced with questions, each more chilling than the last. Who had the motive to erase the real Ronnie and replace her? How long had this deception been in play before she even suspected? And, most terrifyingly, what had been the impostor's ultimate goal? As the days passed, Tracy's anger became a driving force. She refused to tolerate the impostor's presence, refusing to play along with the facade. Every encounter became a battle of wills, a psychological war in which Tracy refused to yield. She meticulously documented every inconsistency, every slip, creating a detailed record that could be used to expose the fraud once and for all. Her fury was not blind, it was strategic. She channeled her pain into preparation, her grief into vigilance, determined to reclaim the life that had been violated. Tracy was no longer a victim of circumstance, she was a force of reckoning, an unyielding presence demanding truth. Yet beneath the anger and determination, there lingered grief, a sorrow that could not be entirely erased by action or strategy. Tracy mourned the real Ronnie, the woman who had been snatched from her life in a cruel, unimaginable way. Memories of laughter, shared confidences, and intimate moments now carried a bittersweet edge, underscoring the permanence of loss. The impostor could mimic gestures and expressions, but she could never truly embody the soul that had been lost. Tracy felt a profound, aching void, a reminder of the irreplaceable person behind the deception. Her grief intertwined with her rage, creating a potent mixture that drove her toward confrontation, exposure, and, ultimately, closure. In her quest for the truth, Tracy began to uncover hints of the impostor's origins. Small fragments of information pointed toward a network of manipulation, perhaps a person with a personal vendetta, someone seeking revenge, attention, or gain by stepping into Ronnie's identity. Each revelation deepened Tracy's resolve, sharpening her focus and clarifying her mission. She realized that exposing the impostor was not just about justice for herself, it was about honoring the memory of the real Ronnie. The more she learned, the more she recognized the complexity of the situation, but her resolve remained unwavering. She would not allow deceit to triumph, nor would she allow the impostor to continue inhabiting the life of the woman she had lost. Tracy's confrontations became more intense, the atmosphere around her charged with tension. Friends, family, and acquaintances began to notice the shift, some drawn into the storm of suspicion and anger, others recoiling in disbelief at the audacity of the claims. Tracy's determination inspired some, alarmed others, but no one could ignore the power of her conviction. The impostor, once confident in her ability to deceive, began to show cracks. The more Tracy pressed, the more the facade faltered, revealing glimpses of uncertainty, fear, and imperfection. It was a slow, painstaking process, but with each slip, Tracy's hope for justice grew stronger, and her anger found its outlet in action rather than mere emotion. Through it all, Tracy grappled with the duality of her experience, the rage against the impostor and the sorrow for the friend she could never reclaim. Anger alone could not heal her, nor could confrontation alone restore what had been lost. She had to reconcile the past, understand the present, and navigate the treacherous path forward with clarity and purpose. The impostor's presence was a constant reminder of betrayal, but it also served as a catalyst for Tracy's transformation. She became sharper, more discerning, and unafraid to confront the harsh realities that others might shy away from. In the crucible of deceit, Tracy forged an unbreakable resolve. Finally, after weeks of relentless pursuit, evidence began to mount, and the impostor's carefully constructed world started to crumble. Tracy presented her findings to those who had once doubted her, meticulously revealing the inconsistencies, the motives, and the undeniable proof that the woman before them was not Ronnie. The reaction was a mix of shock, disbelief, and, for some, relief that the truth had finally come to light. Tracy's anger had driven her to uncover what others could not see, and in doing so, she reclaimed agency over a life that had been manipulated by deception. In the aftermath, the impostor was exposed, removed from the life she had infiltrated, and the truth of Ronnie's death was finally acknowledged. Tracy's journey had been tumultuous, a roller coaster of grief, rage, and revelation, but it had also been transformative. She had navigated betrayal with intelligence and courage, turning her pain into a weapon of justice. Though the loss of the real Ronnie could never be undone, the impostor's exposure affirmed that truth, no matter how hidden or distorted, could ultimately prevail. Tracy, scarred but unbowed, emerged from the chaos with a deeper understanding of loyalty, trust, and the indomitable strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable deceit. Even after the impostor was gone, Tracy's life was forever changed. The memory of the real Ronnie remained a sacred, untouchable part of her heart, a reminder of what had been stolen and what could never be returned. Yet, through the struggle, she discovered resilience, courage, and the power of unwavering determination. Anger, once a consuming fire, had become a guiding force, propelling her toward truth and justice. Tracy's journey was far from over, but she now walked a path illuminated by clarity, strengthened by conviction, and tempered by the profound lessons of loss, betrayal, and the unyielding quest for the truth. Tracy had always trusted Ronnie. She had confided in her, laughed with her, and leaned on her in ways no one else could understand. But the moment the truth came crashing down, that trust was shattered into irreparable pieces. Ronnie, the person she had known and loved, was dead. What had replaced her was an impostor, a chilling mimicry of someone who no longer existed. The realization felt like a physical blow, leaving Tracy gasping, her mind spinning, her heart pounding with disbelief and rage. She had been living a lie, side by side with a stranger wearing the face and voice of a beloved friend. The anger inside her burned with an intensity she had never known, and yet beneath it simmered a sorrow that made her knees weak and her chest ache with grief. At first, Tracy couldn't bring herself to act. She observed quietly, trying to rationalize the impossible, searching for a rational explanation that didn't exist. But as the days passed, the cracks became undeniable. The impostor's laughter didn't carry the warmth of the real Ronnie, her stories lacked the nuanced familiarity that years of shared history had built. Even her mannerisms were slightly off, subtle enough to go unnoticed by others, but glaringly obvious to Tracy. It wasn't just uncanny, it was an affront. Someone had dared to take everything away from her, the memories, the trust, the bond, and replace it with a shadow. Her anger soon transformed into obsession. Every encounter with the impostor became a silent duel. Tracy began cataloging inconsistencies, replaying past conversations, and cross-referencing memories. She questioned herself constantly, was she overreacting, or was there truly something sinister at play? But the deeper she looked, the clearer it became. This was no ordinary deception. The impostor had studied Ronnie meticulously, learning enough to fool the casual observer but failing to grasp the subtleties that made Ronnie real. Tracy felt a fierce protective instinct flare within her, a need to honor the real Ronnie and to expose the charade for what it was. Confrontations were inevitable. Tracy's first attempt was measured, her voice trembling but her words deliberate. "Who are you?" she asked, her eyes locking onto the impostor's. But the impostor's response was eerily calm, almost rehearsed, as if she had anticipated this question 1,000 times. Tracy's pulse raced with frustration and disbelief. The impostor smiled in that unnervingly polite way, the kind that masked cunning behind charm. Tracy's mind reeled with questions. How long had this been happening? Who had orchestrated it? And what was the end game? It was impossible to tell whether she was dealing with a lone manipulator or a more organized scheme. As weeks turned into months, Tracy's life became a battlefield of suspicion and vigilance. She couldn't allow herself to relax, to accept the impostor as merely another person that would be conceding victory to deceit. She began digging deeper, searching for the truth in places others would never consider: old photographs, private journals, social media footprints, even the tiniest inconsistencies in shared stories. Every discovery fueled her anger, sharpening it into precision. She realized that exposing the impostor was not just about justice for herself but about honoring the real Ronnie, whose life had been stolen and replaced with a lie. Her fury often collided with grief, creating a volatile storm of emotion. Tracy mourned the real Ronnie fiercely, remembering laughter, moments of intimacy, and shared dreams that could never be recaptured. Yet, her anger gave her focus, a way to channel the overwhelming sadness into action.